Everybody ready? You ready?
Ready. Yep.
All right. We'll call our meeting to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I have to look at one. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Hodge, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Harding?
Here.
Mr. Hodge here. Mr. Parker? Mr. Stonestreet?
Here.
Mr. Tully?
Here.
And Mr. Stewart's.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. You have on your pads, I think they were, I don't remember if they were emailed or not, but I think they were, the minutes from the April 7 meeting. Has anyone or everyone had an opportunity to review those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The April 7, 2022 minutes are approved. The next agenda item is CMH Homes has requested a special permit to locate a single-family home on a legal non-conforming lot in Hurricane. Does anyone have a conflict with respect to CMH Homes? Okay. Turn it over to you.
CMH Homes Incorporated is requesting a special permit to place a single-family dwelling on an existing legal non-conforming lot of record. The property is located off Elm Street in Hurricane. It's tax map 230C, part of parcel 158. The zoning ordinance defines use special exception as a use that meets the intents and purposes of the zoning district in which the use is situated, but which requires the review and approval of the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to ensure that any possible adverse impacts on adjacent uses, structures, public services, and facilities will be mitigated. Articles 150, 400, 1100, 1150, 1700, 1800, and 2100 of the zoning ordinance are the main provisions by which the special permit request will be considered. On to the facts. The submitted development permit and special permit applications, along with the disclosure statement, are included as attachment A in your packet. For the submitted application, the proposed size of the home is 28 by 48. The dwelling is to be placed on a permanent foundation, have a masonry and/or concrete perimeter enclosure, a pitched roof with shingles, vinyl exterior siding. Sidewalks in the driveway are gravel. The application also states that the city of Hurricane provides water service and Cherry Street and equals 5,642.6 total square feet. The property is located in Hurricane Heights subdivision. This is an old subdivision recorded prior to the adoption of the Putnam County subdivision regulations and the zoning ordinance. Most of the lots in the subdivision are substandard to current ordinance requirements. The Putnam County Assessor's Office provided attachment B. It is tax map 230C for Hurricane Heights. The boundaries of tax map 230C are outlined by a blue line. The subject lot is highlighted pink. A large portion of the provided tax map is also included in the attachment. BZA previously approved 10 similar requests in the same vicinity as the subject property. 2 are on Elm Street, 2 on Beach Street, 2 on Chestnut Street, 1 on Oak Street, 2 on Clayton Avenue, and Harbor Lane, Oak Street intersection. Each of these approvals were reviewed by the BZA because of the lot's existing configuration and/or size. In each case, minimum setback requirements were met or exceeded. These property locations are highlighted yellow in the enlarged map in attachment B. The subject parcel is zoned R1. An aerial photograph with a zoning map is included as attachment C. The subject parcel is outlined and directly abutted by other R1 properties. The applicant submitted a survey of the site and delineated the proposed structure with dimensions and setbacks. The proposed 1,344 square foot home can be placed on the existing property and exceed the minimum zoning setbacks. A 20-foot front and rear setback along with 5 feet on the sides are required. See attachment D. The subject parcel is not located within the 100-year floodplain. Photographs from May 25th of the site are included as attachment E. The applicant submitted a written response to Article 1100.05A through 8 of the zoning ordinance and a letter to the board that includes other photographs and a home floor plan. That's in attachment F. To date, staff has received 2 inquiries from neighboring property owners, one regarding an address clarification and the other about the proposed perimeter enclosure. Staff responded to each comment and neither citizen expressed opposition. Article 1100.101 of the zoning ordinance references the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan. Attachment G is Chapter 5 of the county's plan. Number 13, the special permit request was legally advertised in the Hurricane Breeze on May the 12th, 2022. Abutting landowners within 250 feet were notified via a May 11 mailing, and a notice of public hearing was placed for the subject parcel on May 25th. A worksheet is provided for you, what you can use it to help come to your determination for tonight. And I'm available for questions if you have them.
How many other special permits did you say has been granted for this area? 11?
10
10?
in this specific area.
And this is just another one of those areas where the lots were sized up before the current zoning
Yes.
setbacks and everything was set up, so they're all non-conforming in the area.
Yeah, all the parcels, with the exception of a few, are substandard.
So in order to place really any kind of home on there, they need the special permit.
Yes,
Right. And there's no opposition by anybody in the neighborhood to
I
the,
did not receive any.
all right.
Any additional questions of staff? Does anyone wish to speak on behalf of the applicant? If you would, please be sworn in and then state your name and address, please.
I do. My name's Travis Townsend. My address is 16 Morris Court, Culloden, West Virginia, 25510. 16 Morris Court, Culloden, West Virginia, 25510. I'm the general manager of Oakwood Homes in Barboursville, West Virginia. I've been with the company 9 years, been in my current position for about 6 years. We put several homes in the area. We put a couple on Beach Street, as well as another home on Cherry Street at this lot that we're looking to do this project on. This home would fit in well with what's on the street there. There's several single wides as well as double wides presently there. We do plan on doing a permanent masonry foundation, as you could see in the last picture that was up there. That's a project that we recently did within the city limits of Huntington. Pricing of this home when everything's completed with landscaping and driveways is probably going to be in the 160s to 170s range. So it should be consistent with the other homes in the area. So if you all have any other questions or anything, I'd be happy to answer those.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Townsend?
So are you the owner of the property, of the lot, or?
No, I'm the general manager for Oakwood Homes who's purchasing the property. The owner is here of
Okay,
the
but
property.
let's say CMH is the owner of the property.
No, we are purchasing the property. We're under contract to purchase pending the permit
Okay,
being
so-
approved.
So who's the property owner?
Okay, the current property owner is here. They are in contract with the mobile home dealer to purchase the property if the special permit is approved this evening.
Oh, okay.
CMH, who he's representing, will be the owner if
Yes.
they receive their approval tonight.
Yes,
Okay,
we,
so-
we would own the property. We're just waiting to receive the permit in order to close on the land and purchase the property.
All right, okay, so the permit will be issued to the new owner or the existing owner?
CMH is the applicant for the special permit and the development permit for the home. So they would be the ones who would receive the actual permit.
All right, and it'll still run with the land, once they get it? Or is it, I just want to make sure there's not a title kind of issue.
No, they're going to finalize the purchase of the land if they receive approval tonight.
All right, and then the approval will continue once they acquire,
The approval will stick for their proposal.
okay.
Yes.
So what about when they sell it, if they sell it in the future? Does that permit continue
You
on?
mean once the site is developed?
Yes,
Yeah, the special permit will stick with the site as developed, as long as it was developed as approved.
all right, okay. All right, I'm good.
Anybody else, any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Looking at the sign-in sheet, no one else is marked as appearing for this special permit. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak about the special permit request? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing, and we'll turn to deliberations.
Mr. President, I would go ahead and move to adopt as the factual record for this matter the materials submitted by staff and the testimony by the speaker.
Anybody, any second?
I'll second.
All in favor of adopting the administrative record as outlined by Mr. Stonestreet? Say aye.
Aye?
With 4 ayes, that is adopted as our administrative record.
All right. Anybody have any concerns that I guess it's the 8 criteria are not satisfied for this property?
No.
All right. So, in the absence of any discussion, I would move that we approve the special permit with the conditions recommended by staff and find that all of the 8 criteria are satisfied for the reasons set forth in attachment E to the application and for the reasons presented in the testimony by Mr. Townsend.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Did you mean to say attachment E or attachment F?
Whichever, F, sorry. Yeah, I was looking at E's the picture, F. Yeah, so I'll amend that by referencing attachment F. Thank you.
I think that motion's still been made and seconded. With that clarification, any discussion, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye?
With 4 ayes, the special permit is approved. Thank you, Mr. Townsend. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the hearing, but we'll get an order entered and it'll be sent to you all.
Are you all going to make a motion to take care of the order? There is one laying at your seat.
Oh, you have one?
Yes.
I would move that I be authorized to enter an order documenting the approval that we just approved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye? Yep.
Okay, the next agenda item, Mr. George Watson II has requested a zoning variance and special permit and new construction of an 18-foot, 7-inch tall detached garage in the Tays Valley Meadows North subdivision. Does anyone have a conflict with respect to Mr. Watson's?
Mr. President, I believe that I do have a conflict. I am Mr. Watson's immediate adjacent neighbor to that property, and the decision that the board makes tonight would directly affect me as an adjoining property owner, and for that reason, I think I am conflicted from participating in the decision of the board on either application that Mr. Watson has submitted.
Okay. Anyone else?
So I would ask that the minutes reflect the disclosure of the conflict and that I will now depart and the remainder of the board can hear and make a decision on the application.
Thank you very much. The record will reflect that, and thank you for your thorough analysis of your conflict.
Great. No.
No, I don't think
All
we
right.
did. Just wanted to make sure that didn't need to call you back. Well, I will turn to staff. I'll also note that Mr. Stone Street has left the room and is leaving the building. I'll now turn over to staff, but I want to note some rules with respect to the public hearing. The staff will present the summary of the case. The applicant will be able to make comments. Public comments will be taken, and I do have a list of people who have indicated they wish to speak. There may be questions from members of the board, and once we have taken all those comments, we will turn to deliberations. All comments should be directed to the board. Please request to be recognized by me prior to making public comments, and I will work from the record from the sign-in sheet. Out of curiosity, is everyone who is here, has everyone signed in when they came in the room? Did anyone not sign in? Okay. No one has indicated that they've not signed in. Prior to making comments, please be sworn in, and then after being sworn in, state your name and address. The board will hear testimony from each applicant and any expert witnesses. Each speaker from the public will be allowed to speak once, and the comment time will be limited. The public hearing is held to receive comments. It is not a forum for debate. And I'll remind everyone to please remember to direct all comments toward the board, not to the applicant or to one another. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, please note before we start on the presentation that we do have a variance request and a special permit request for the same project. If you wish to hold one public hearing to hear both, then you'll need to make a motion.
I'll move that we hold one public hearing to address the Watson variance and the Watson special permit.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
With 3 ayes, we will hold one public hearing with respect to the George Watson variance as well as the George Watson special permit.
Mr. George Watson II has requested a zoning variance and special permit for new construction of an 18-foot, 7-inch tall detached garage accessory apartment dwelling on parcel 225 of tax map 222D at 701 Plantation Drive, Tays Valley Meadows, North of subdivision in Hurricane, West Virginia. Articles 150, 400, 1100, and 2100 of the zoning ordinance are the main provisions by which these requests will be considered. Zoning ordinance definitions: dwelling accessory apartment, a secondary dwelling unit established in conjunction with a primary dwelling unit, whether a part of the same structure as the primary dwelling unit or a detached dwelling unit. Dwelling single family, a building designed or used exclusively for the occupancy of one family and having housekeeping facilities for only one family. Dwelling unit, one or more habitable rooms occupied or intended or designed to be occupied by one family with facilities for living, sleeping, cooking, and eating. Special exception use, a use that meets the intents and purposes of the zoning district in which the use is situated, but which requires the review and approval of the Board of Zoning Appeals in order to ensure that any possible adverse impacts on adjacent uses, structures, or public services facilities will be mitigated. Variance, a modification of the strict terms of the relevant regulations of this ordinance where such modification will not be contrary to the public interest and where owning to conditions peculiar to the property that are not the result of the action of the applicant, a literal enforcement of the regulations would result in unnecessary and undue hardship. On the facts. In March 2022, the Planning Commission Office received a verbal complaint about the new construction at the subject location. Once received, staff visited the site and contacted the property owner. The property owner is Mr. George Watson and his wife. They were advised that an approved permit had not been obtained for construction as required. A detailed conversation with Mr. Watson followed as to the permit application process. On April 18th, Mr. Watson submitted variant special permit applications to construct a detached accessory apartment dwelling with 3 foot 7 inches above 15-foot height allotment for an accessory structure. These applications, including disclosure statements, are included as attachment A. The subject property is located in Hayes Valley Meadows North Subdivision and is zoned R1 Single Family Residential. This parcel is surrounded by other properties in the subdivision which are also zoned R1. The zoning map is included as attachment B. Mr. Watson's parcel is outlined. A recent aerial photograph is included as attachment C. The accessory structure foundation footprint is outlined. The Putnam County Assessor's GIS system measures the accessory structure to be located 66 feet from the north property line, 58 feet from the east property line, 8 feet from the south property line, and 5 feet from the west property line. All required minimum zoning setbacks have been met. Conservatively, the subdivision lot is 11,360 square feet. The applicant has submitted the lot's total impervious surface equals 6,539 square feet. Using these numbers, the parcel has a 57.56% impervious surface coverage. Therefore, the site is in compliance with the maximum zoning ordinance allotment of 60%. See attachment D for use of property square footage submitted by the applicant. Mr. Watson submitted photographs, structure sketches with dimensions, and the floor plan of the accessory structure. That's in attachment E. Staff visited the site on May 25th and took the photographs, which are in attachment F. The subject property is not within FEMA's 100-year flood hazard area. Public water and sewer service are supplied by Putnam PSC. The applicant submitted correspondence to the board, as well as written responses to Article 2100.08B and Article 1100.05 in the zoning ordinance. These items are included as attachment G. The applicant submitted 1 email from an appraiser, 1 email from a real estate broker, and 1 letter from a realtor about increasing property value. Those are in attachment H. The applicant submitted an email chain shared with the subdivision's homeowners association in which the HOA board gave approval for Watson's construction. That's in attachment I. Staff has received 20 public comments about the Watson project. 4 comments are in opposition of the applications, and those are included in attachment J. One opposing comment is from an address within the 250-foot notice area. 2 come from addresses outside the 200-foot notice area, and the other opposing commenter did not provide an address. 16 comments are in support of the Watson application and are included as attachment K. 8 supporting comments are from addresses within the 200-foot notice area. 3 come from addresses outside of the 200-foot notice area. The other 5 supporting comments did not provide addresses. Article 1100.01 of the zoning ordinance references the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan. Attachment L is Chapter 5 of the county plan. The Board of Zoning Appeals previously granted similar approvals. In 2012, the BZA approved a variance request which allowed construction of a 21-foot tall garage in the R1 district. In 2014, the BZA approved variance and special permit request which allowed a 24-foot tall detached accessory apartment dwelling in the R1 zoning district. The public hearing was legally advertised in the Hurricane Breeze on April 28th. Abutting landowners within 250 feet were notified by an April 29 mailing, and a notice of public hearing was placed at the subject site on May 25th. I do want to remind everyone that when we have these circumstances, a variance decision must come first before a special permit decision. And as always, you have special permit and variance worksheets provided for you, so you may use that at your convenience while you make decisions. And I am available for questions.
Does anyone have any questions? The 2 prior approvals, you mentioned the 21 and the 24-foot. Those were both in R1?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought you said, but. So if you could, for the record, crystallize really what the issues are here in terms of why they need this variance and special permit to do what they wish to do.
Okay. The height limit for an accessory structure in the zoning ordinance currently is 15 feet. So this particular structure is just a wee bit higher than 15, it's 8. And the R1 district, under the accessory uses, lists an accessory apartment dwelling as a special permit. And it's, when it boils down to it, those are the 2 reasons we're here tonight. Height and the listing of a special permit required for this particular request.
So those are the only issues that we've got to address with respect, or those are the issues that we've got to address and discuss with respect to both of Mr. Watson's requests.
Yes, that's what the zoning ordinance mandates us to discuss tonight.
Okay. Any additional questions?
I got a dumb question. Are we talking about a building that's already built, finished?
It's my understanding that it is 80% complete.
It's 80% complete?
That's my understanding, yes.
It was stopped because they didn't have the paperwork, proper paperwork?
Staff did not go out and issue a cease and desist. By the time it was found out, it was already under roof. And the property owner was advised that if they did continue without a permit, they would potentially continue, at their own risk.
And it appears that the this subdivision is also subject to a homeowners association, and it appears from the packet that the homeowners association has approved Mr. Watson's plans.
That is the email chain that was submitted to staff, yes. I would just like to remind you, since you brought it up, that the county has no jurisdiction or authority in invoking any type of deed restrictions or homeowners association governance or anything along those lines.
And the issues before us are the 15-foot height restriction and whether the accessory apartment can be approved as a special permit.
Correct.
So no need to discuss homeowners association issues. Okay. Any additional questions of Melissa? No. All right, does the applicant wish to speak? If you would, be sworn in and then state your name and address, please.
So help me God. George Watson. And officially I am the second, but that's not really relevant in Putnam County. The first is elsewhere.
Okay.
Thank you guys for giving me the time this evening. First, I'd like to apologize to you all. I should have been here several months ago, as Mr. Harding stated. I was not aware we needed any approval from the county in any shape or form. We waited for 3 months to be approved by the Homeowners Association, and once that happened, we pulled the trigger and got going, and that was foolish on my part, and I apologize that I've put you guys in this spot this evening. But first, I want to say my family and I, we're a sports family. We like sports. They teach you 2 great lessons. They teach you to compete. They teach you to be accountable. With this in mind, we've always strived to always be approachable neighbors. We've always strived to be helpful neighbors. Therefore, it really surprised me why any of our neighbors may have had any issues with us and never took the time to approach us and ask us any questions, point out to us any of their concerns. I like to think we'd have been amenable and we could have done some things before we got with you all, but here we are. We love Putnam County, we love Hurricane, we love Tays Valley Meadows North. We've been there nearly 20 years, and that's why we've undergone the changes to this property we have. We easily could have moved elsewhere within Hurricane and gotten what we needed and what we wanted, but we've raised our kids in Tays Valley Meadows North. We love Tays Valley Meadows North. We want to stay where we are. We don't want to move. In nearly 20 years, me or someone in my family has been the Relay for Life chairman, Special Olympics greeter, lector, Sunday school teacher, altar server at the Ascension Church, community cover at Hurricane Sports Network, countless toy drives, travel cheerleading, Hurricane football, baseball, basketball, soccer, Winfield football and basketball, etc., etc. I say that not because... Yes, ma'am. Forgive me. I'm a little nervous.
Take your time.
I say that not because I think that makes me immune to your rules and regulations. I say that to let you know that each of us go to great lengths to be a serviceable member of our community. And we try to be a good neighbor, and we try to help out when we can with our time, our talent, and our treasure. As I explained in my letter to you, I was not aware that I needed any permits for any of this stuff. And at the time it came to me, when someone came to me on March the 25th, the structure was already as tall as it is now and would ever get. So when I spoke to the folks that I met with here about did I need to stop at this time, the inference was it's not going to get any taller. So, you know, there were no guarantees made about what would happen here tonight. But I was advised, definitely do not make the facility any taller as it's gone on. And as she mentioned, it was 80%. The outside was 80% done before any of this was ever brought to my attention. I don't want you guys to think I just thought I could throw it up and it would be easier to get forgiveness than permission. That's not how I operate when I'm dealing with tens of thousands of dollars. Oh my goodness. Several of my neighbors had told me about people who had come around to their door hoping to get them to show up here tonight and speak against my project. They mentioned 3 different concerns that they had with my property. And one is that I did not seek approval from the Homeowners Association, which we've already covered that I did, and I think you guys have proof of that. The structure will damage property values, and we intend to rent out the structure. Those are the things I'm hoping to deal with you guys on this evening. As far as the structure will damaging property value, as she mentioned, I have gotten letters from a real estate broker, an appraiser, and a realtor. All three stating the best way to improve your property's value is to increase above-grade livable space and make the construction of at least the quality of the sitting structure. I think you'll see in the pictures that has been done. As I said in my letter to you guys, there are 5 structures within 2 miles of my house, including 2 in my subdivision that have similar structures, including a couple that may have been the ones she mentioned that appeared they probably needed a variance as well because they're pretty tall. I'm in the mortgage business. In the mortgage business, apparently now there are times we can approve loans without having an appraisal. When we do that, the way we get the value of the home is we use Fannie Mae's tool called their AVM, their automatic value model. Using that model and going back 5 years ago tonight and going to day before yesterday, those 5 structures have seen their value increase over $400,000. An average of a 37% increase in 5 years for those structures. The smallest of the 5 improved 26% compared to an 18% nationwide average. I do not think our property will do anything but enhance the property values. And last but not least, there are people that seem to be concerned that we're going to rent out this facility. That's the one thing that I completely control. I honestly cannot tell you guys that the property value is going to go up. I can tell you historically they have. But I do not control the market as much as I've tried. I do control whether I will ever rent the place out or not. And this structure will never have a commercial use when I'm the homeowner. The main reason is that is against our homeowners association covenants. You cannot even rent out a room of your home, much less an accessory structure. And if I was going to avoid any of my homeowner association's covenants, I wouldn't re-side my home. To meet the covenants, my home has to have a matching siding and roof as the new structure. With my home being 20 years old, there was really no way to put siding on the new one to match our old one because the old one, through the sunlight, is faded. So we're going to have to we're tearing the siding off of our home and re-siding it with siding exactly matching it. So if I wasn't going to live up to my subdivision covenants, that would be the one I would choose to avoid, just to save myself, again, tens of thousands more dollars. The structure that we're talking about will be vacant most of the year. For nothing else, our plans for the immediate future is it's going to be a fancy pool house. It has an outdoor shower. I think you can see on the pictures. It's going to be a fancy pool house. Now, my wife and I do have 3 parents currently living. The youngest of those 3 is 74 years old. We're super proud that we're going to be in a position to assist with their care when it inevitably becomes necessary. With this structure, we can provide a loved one the ability to live out their years with some dignity, surrounded by their loved ones, rather than in a nursing home. Not that there's anything wrong with any of the nursing homes. But wouldn't each of you do the same if you had the room and the means? And wouldn't it be great if your children made efforts to do this for you? All we want to do is to return the favor of the love we receive from our family if we are presented with the need to do so. And in the event this happened, these people will be long past the age where they're driving cars. This will in no way increase any traffic in our subdivision. I promise, by the way, I'm almost finished. My wife and I were both survivors of cancer. We were able to overcome these maladies through incredible medical care, love from our families, and incredible support from the people of Putnam County. They hauled our kids around to events in school. They mowed our grass and other things that went above and beyond what any of us could have ever dreamed. We cherish being part of the community, and we sincerely apologize for any hardship we've caused in any way.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Watson?
I've got one question. It doesn't matter, but
Yes.
is that concrete all the way around there, your house?
Help me understand what you're...
Is that concrete all the way around your house?
Oh, no, sir. We got a large front yard with grass and... Oh, we have a large front yard of grass, and if you're looking at the home, all the way up the right side is grass as well.
Okay.
But now there is some concrete back by the pool.
Well, I was looking, it looked like the driveway went back and the whole backyard is concrete.
No, sir.
I just wondered.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions of Mr. Watson? All right. Mr. Watson, I don't think I have any questions for you either. Thank you. Okay, let me go through the list and call on those who have marked they wanted to speak. And where- Mr. Watson, your address is 701 Plantation Drive, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that was you, but I wanted to make sure. The next person who has checked that they wish to speak is Stan, apologize if I mispronounce this, Ilikanen?
Not too bad.
All right. If you would, please be sworn in and then state your name and address after being sworn in into the microphone.
Before I swear in,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
What was your name?
Stan Ilikainen.
Can you spell it?
I had difficulty. Illikainen. Nancy, Edward, Nancy, last three letters. 339 North Ridge Drive, Hurricane, Tays Valley Meadows North.
Use the microphone.
Okey-doke. Okay, just to let you know, I have lived there when the original covenants and bylaws were established. Fact is, I was on the original team that established the original covenants and bylaws, and I have seen them in operation all the time since I've lived there. I've been on the boards, in that initial board to set that up, and then I've been on the board since then. And there has never been a question about understanding what's in those bylaws by anyone till now. And that's what's disturbing. Because when you think about it, the bylaws have to be approved by 2/3 of the members to be legal. That's over 100 houses, 100 families. So what we're saying right now is we have one person who wants a variance from the bylaws and so forth, which would be contrary to the wishes of over 100 families who have been happy since the establishment of these bylaws. Now, any family that moves in to purchase a home or moves in gets a copy of the bylaws so they know what's in them, or at least they should if they're responsible citizens. And okay, just to rehash a couple of what's in there. So I want to do that. Under Section 1, Article 4, Section 1 of the bylaws. And these have been in existence. By the way, the bylaws have been in existence ever since that time, early 2000s. And with minor modifications only. None of the main pertinent points have been changed or altered in any way. Okay, Section 1, primary use of restrictions. No lot shall be subdivided or its boundary lines changed except with the written consent of the board. An email is not good enough. A verbal approval is not good enough. It has to be a written consent of the board. So I don't know what kind of approval you guys got. I don't know.
Mr. Ilikanen, and I'm probably still not saying it correctly, I apologize. I don't want to cut you off or preclude you from talking about the bylaws necessarily, but we're really unable to address anything with respect to the bylaws or enforcement of the bylaws. We can only look at the Putnam County ordinance. We don't have any authority as a board over enforcement of the bylaws.
Okay. But that should have some essence with the request for the variance and so forth, what's in the bylaws, because Mr. Watson claimed he honors the bylaws and reads them thoroughly, and honors them. In fact, I believe him. He said he really endorsed them and wanted to follow them, but he hasn't. And it says, like I say, no lot shall be used except for private, single-family residential purposes. No structure shall be erected, placed or altered or permitted to remain on any lot except one single-family dwelling, not to exceed a front elevation height of 2 1/2 stories. I can go into more of that if I want, but it's not necessary. And then when you talk about, I'm sorry, and then if you talk about additional, except that one detached storage building shall be permitted. One detached storage building, not apartment complex, storage building, shall be permitted with the following restrictions. The exterior of the storage building shall be constructed with the same materials and color as the exterior of the residence dwelling. And you can see from the picture that it's not. It's not even close. And those are storage buildings, not an apartment complex. Now, a couple other points. Excuse me while I shuffle through this. You know, he talked about commercial. He said he wasn't going to do any commerce. And I hope he adheres to that, because in Section 7, no trade or business of any kind shall be conducted on any lot, nor shall anything be done therein which may become an annoyance or nuisance to the neighborhood. So obviously increased traffic, increased all those, could be a problem. But it says nothing, no commercial business of any kind. And finally, excuse me while I try to find it. Oh. Well, obviously, it says no property owner without the proper written approval of the association may impose any additional covenants or restrictions on any part of the land governed by these covenants. And finally, I wanted to say that, hey, any change, anything approval by the board has to be written consent by the board. Any verbal or any type of one-person contact is not sufficient approval from the board. It must be written approval of the board. And I know because I established these originals and I was involved with them since then. So with that, I leave it to you.
Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Arley-Kynan? No. Thank you very much for your time. The next person who marked that they wish to speak is Terry Arley-Kynan, and I now know how to say the last name. If you would be sworn in and then state your name and address, please.
Yes. Yes,
Do solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please use the microphone.
All right. My name is Terry Illikainen.
Could you come just a little, just a little.
Terry Illikainen. Oh,
If it's easier.
yeah. Okay, basically, my first contact was with Kathy Hicks from the infrastructure office, and she indicated that it was not permitted to build 2 residences on a lot zoned as an R1 family residential lot. And she also, I also talked to David Cole, and he said there was no building permit for this dwelling at all. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding, because you can't have 2 residences on one lot, he would not have been able to even get a building permit, even if he had requested one. So the fact that he works at a bank, I mean, I'm assuming he knows about building permits. He knows that you don't build something without a building permit. The Putnam County has jurisdiction over that. The HOA does not allow it either, but Putnam County basically is in charge of that. And since he's familiar with banking and regulations, he should have known that. He's an educated man. My concern is that this is an R1 family residential location. We have safety issues for children riding bikes and, basically playing on the streets. So we don't want on-street parking. And this will set a precedent for other people to do the same thing if he's allowed to get by with building this and then getting approval for illegally having built it. Then other people will do that as well and use him as an example, the fact that he got by with what he did. Because there's probably over 128 homes in our subdivision, I mean, we're looking at probably $60 to $65 million worth of investment, real estate investments in our area. And I've lived there since 1998, so this has never been done before. No one has ever felt entitled to do this type of thing and then ask for permission after they've done it. We all knew what the covenants were. I believe that he broke the covenant basically because he wasn't supposed to be building two locations on one lot. So a lot of people have a lot to be concerned about. If he should sell this property at some point, then it goes into the hands of another homeowner. And that's a potential place that can be rented, whether we know about it or not. It's got a kitchen, it's got everything that you can live in that dwelling with. So this sets up another situation where that could be rented out 5 years, 10 years down the road. I mean, who knows? Because it will be potentially a location for other people to live in. No one will really know if it's rented out or not. It can be done, sort of secretly. It was my understanding through other neighbors that I've talked to that they originally said that this was going to be a pool house. People did complain. People wrote the president, Sonia Santangelo, she got a letter. People wrote her and complained about it when it first started, not when it was under roof. I mean, eventually, the Putnam County the board, the planning and zoning, the planning commission was contacted, but he supposedly had gotten to a different stage of construction at that point. So I really don't understand. I'm concerned about the fact that if this is given approval, that other people will try to do the same thing. And the HOA, there won't be anything that they can do about it. Since he got to do it, other people want to do the same thing, and we won't have any way to say this is not permissible. As I said, there's probably over $60 to $65 million worth of investments, real estate investments in this area. Tays Valley Meadows North was designed for a residential community. It was not designed for apartment living. Danny and Linda Harshberger designed the homes there, and most of the people that I know bought the homes because they were reassured through the covenants that we would have a community that would be a residential R1 family residential zoned property. And we wouldn't have to worry about having a problem with transient people there, because people want to know who their children are around when they're playing. They want people that are these staple family homes where people are playing, where their children are. So this changes the whole definition of the community, in my opinion. That's what I wanted to say.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Alikainen?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Kim Earls is the next person who's checked to speak. Mr. Earls, if you would, please be sworn in and then state your name and address afterwards, and that will adjust. I'm not sure exactly how to do it, but I know it does adjust.
So,
You ready for us?
yes,
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name is Kim Earls.
Kim Earls, that's Earls. I live at 303 Plantation Drive in the neighborhood in Tays Valley Meadows North, and I've been there 28 years. So, good evening to the president, other members of the board. Okay, all right, I need it if anybody does. Thank you for giving me a minute to speak. I'm in support of the Watsons addition, and I'll tell you why. Let's see, maybe nobody has mentioned this, but there are currently 4 other complete in-law suites in homes in our neighborhood that were built, in real estate, they usually call them in-law suites for aging parents. One was originally constructed when the house was built about 25 years ago. The main developer built the home. I know the people who built the home, and I've actually been in the home. It's complete. Kitchen, bath, laundry, living, and a separate garage. It's 2 doors or 3 doors down from the Watsons. So that house has been there for 25 years. There are 3 others that are complete in-law suites. One is his next door neighbor. Actually, it's Mr. Stone Street's house. The other 3 were added on after construction, and they were added for aging parents, which I think is a wonderful thing. So they're not the first ones to build a new addition to add on or something for aging parents. So they're actually the 5th that I know of. As far as the height of the garage, there's one right behind me, a 2-car garage that was added on. The lot adjoins mine in a corner, and it's got a big hip roof, and the roof is higher than the lower level. It's a 2-car garage. I doubt they had a variance approved. It's just nobody ever complained until Mr. Watson's project. I have addresses for those other garages and full in-law suites if you want them. Something I think is important to consider as neighbors is kindness and doing things the right way and compassion. And I'm proud to be a West Virginian. I'm proud to live in Hurricane, and I really do love this county. I think it's the right thing to do. When I built my house, I had a child in kindergarten. Now I'm retired, and we have aging parents, and so, that happens really quickly. Your family situation can change way before you know it. Decades pass way before we think they will. I think they're to be applauded. I hope there are more people who plan for aging parents and having provisions for them. I think it's great. I think it adds to our community. I think it adds to its progress. It's a norm in many cultures. You take your parents into your home. How can we discourage that? What a shame to discourage that. I just had a mother in assisted living, and supposedly the best place around. It was horrible. It was $6,000 a month. My mother-in-law just went in a nursing home because of a broken hip, $10,000 to $12,000 a month. It was horrible. She sat in a room all the time. Is that what we want for our parents? Mine are both gone. I didn't have the opportunity to add on. We wanted to, but Mom died first. But I think to have the opportunity to do that and bring them into your home, I don't want to sit in a nursing home by myself, and drain my family of all the value in my home that they maybe would inherit. So I think they're to be applauded. I think they're to be encouraged. And I hope more communities are allowing homeowners to add on to your house. They've got plenty of room. It's lovely. They've spared no expense. It's going to increase my property value when I sell my home. It's not an apartment building. Some neighbor made a comment on Facebook that it's an apartment building. It's an in-law suite. When they're blessed to bring their parents to their home, it's an in-law suite where their parents are going to be comfortable and cared for. It's kind of the West Virginia way. So I just don't see anything negative about it. I really don't. People, some other neighbors have talked about the HOA. We have garages all over the neighborhood that exceed the HOA limit. Does anybody complain about it? No, because they're attractive. They're fine. Who cares? But they add to their value, which, what I sell is going to add to my value. I want my neighbor to have more expensive houses than I do. That's exactly what I want. So I saw their addition going up. I'm like, yay, good for them. I hope one day we can do something like that. So I think it's great. I think they're to be applauded. I hope you approve it. I doubt they're the highest roof in the neighborhood as far as a garage. I think the other one is right behind me, and it's a brick 2-story, but it's got a big old hip roof, and the roof is taller than the main floor. And as far as single family, your parents are your family. They're not renting it out, to college kids. They're doing it to allow for their parents to come there. As these other 4 homes that have complete in-law suites did it for their aging parents. I think it's a win-win, guys. Any questions for me?
Do we have any questions, Ms. Earl? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next on the list is Dave Stewart. Mr. Stewart, if you would please be sworn in and then state your name and address for the record. You'll probably have to adjust that upward.
Yes. Oh, okay.
solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, speak into the microphone.
Yes. My name's David Stewart, and okay, is that better? Okay. My name's David Stewart. I live at 1105 Old Pine Drive. I'm a resident. Okay, I'm a resident. It's hard to look at everybody and speak into this microphone. I'm a resident of Tays Meadow North, along with Stan and Terry and other people. I guess 128 or more of us. I'm concerned. I just want to make some comments. First of all, I'm friends. I consider myself friends of George. I mean, I have a speaking relationship with him. I'm not here to make any adversarial relationships or anything like that. But I am concerned as a property owner. And I'm one of the people that years ago, I speak as an engineer, so I'm not a professional in land business, but I moved in here from outside the state with Columbia as a petroleum engineer. So I get a perspective that's unique that a lot of people don't have from moving in from another state into this area. And one of the concerns that I had when I came here was how zoning is done compared to other states. I have a family that lived in Winchester, Kentucky till they passed away. I know what the zoning's like over there. I know how they look at their housing subdivisions. When I came to this state, I had concerns because I wanted to invest in real estate here, but I wanted protection of my investment. And when my wife and I bought a house in the subdivision, one of the main things I was concerned about was the maintenance of my investment, what could affect that investment, and that zoning would be adequate to protect it, and the restrictions that would be on the deed that would protect it. That was a major thing to me. And I would say that other people, which we know we have a number of them that move into this area, they have the same concerns when they come to this area. They want to protect their investments too, and they come from other states that they're used to places that they protect their residences there and don't allow the property values to depreciate. My concern is how this was done. We all know about the restrictions on our deeds. Every person in our subdivision, I would say, is a very intelligent person. We have probably every profession represented in our subdivision. These people are intelligent. They read their restrictions. I guarantee they know what they are. What I'm concerned about, too, is the precedent that's being set. I'm not a lawyer, but I know enough to know that once you set precedent, that people can use that as evidence to do other things and say, well, hey, an exception was made before, so we can do it again. You've already broken the restrictions. How this was done, how our homeowners association has been operating, the officers, that's another subject, but I'm very unhappy with how they've represented our subdivision in the past year. I told them last year that I felt that we needed something besides a Zoom meeting, that especially older people, that we were able to express ourselves, and what we had is, our reasons for business in a public meeting, much better than with a Zoom protocol that a lot of us older people are not really familiar with. I was told in no uncertain terms that that's just the way it was going to be. Even though COVID restrictions, they already had allowed you to have meetings. By the time we were going to have our meeting, I was told in no uncertain terms that it would be a Zoom meeting. And from what I was told, very few people attended. We never had any minutes that came out from that meeting. So there was no official business meeting even conducted last year that I know of, that we knew about, as far as how it actually occurred. I don't even think anybody from our homeowners associations, the officers, is here tonight, which I think is a tragedy when you think about representing us as homeowners. I'm upset about that. What I'm really upset about is the interaction between a county's zoning boards and people like me that move into a subdivision seeking protection on our properties by restrictions on deeds, and the fact that I can't count on that, as far as I'm concerned, in this county, or I don't know really where in this state I can count on it, that even if I have restrictions, that doesn't mean that they're not going to be violated. I disagree that a homeowners association, I don't know how that works with just the officers, that they could just completely violate the terms of our restrictions and make exceptions. To me, then what good is it? I mean, you just get anybody on your board you want and anything can happen. I don't understand that. It confuses me since I'm not a lawyer. I don't feel like I have any protections. And I think my concern is on this. Number one, I saw the construction, and I'm friends with George, and I like George as a person. I ask him about his pool, and he knows it. I try to be a friendly person. I walk through this neighborhood every single day, so I see what goes on. This started, I'm not sure exactly when, but it was very early in the year, and I knew there was some conflict about it, and the building just continued. I mean, that I could see, there was no leveling off on it whatsoever. I'd walk by every day, and the construction just continued like nothing was going on. And I know
what was the time frame for that?
What's that?
What was that time frame?
Oh, I've been walking. I walk for diabetes every night, 2 miles, 6 nights out of 7. I've been doing this for 2 years now. So I do it in January all through the winter. I noticed it starting, if I remember right, it was probably back in early winter, sometime like that. I don't know exactly when, but I saw it start. I didn't know what it was going to be. But, I was an officer in my former subdivision at Tays Village. And I know we had restrictions too, and somebody wanted to build some kind of an outbuilding. And of course, they had started it, but we had officers that enforced our restrictions, and they went out very early in the building process and talked to the person and said, this is in violation of what's in our restrictions. And they basically, at a very early point, had to turn around and discontinue building it because it's going to violate our restrictions. What I'm concerned about is, officers, as far as I'm concerned, if you are an officer in a subdivision, every 2 weeks you should be around in your subdivision kind of knowing what's going on. I would have been in my old subdivision, and you would see buildings starting, and you would go up there and ask them, hey, what's going on here? Well, I'm building something. Well, do you realize that you don't have setback from the property boundary? I haven't read the restrictions, but what I remember, it's a big violation from the setback of the property boundaries. That's one of my main concerns, that type of thing. And for the officers just to be able to violate our restrictions, which basically means our restrictions mean nothing, to me, they usurped their authority to even do that. It's not really something that was really out of the norm. And I was told that just by hearsay that this project been under consideration, and I can't say it's anything but a rumor, but I was told 18 months before it started. So to me, that shows to me that somebody was considering whether they could or could not get away with it. And obviously, once it's built, I think for a second that once something's built, it's probably worth well over $100,000, that they're going to say, well, you can't have it now, you've got to tear it down. No, anybody with a reasonable mind knows that once you get it to this point, you have to make an exception. But I think we've destroyed basically our protections in our subdivision now. And I think anybody that moves in and they start hearing about this and considering buying a house in our subdivision sees this, and that it happened, then they're not going to have any confidence anymore in our restrictions either. And that really concerns me, because I have a substantial investment in this subdivision too. And I know how other people from out of state are going to look at it now. So that's more of a comment of what's going on and my concern. I'd like to know now how the zoning board does interact with the restrictions that are on deeds. I know you have to know what the restrictions are on the deeds because they're all filed over here, you know, when people buy properties. So obviously you're aware of restrictions. And I think there should be some kind of an interaction between your approvals that are done and the known restrictions on different subdivisions. And obviously it doesn't seem that there is. So that really greatly concerns me. So basically it's mainly a comment. I'm not against George or anybody else in my subdivision, but I am very much concerned about the fact that we set a major precedent now in our subdivision, and then basically my restrictions mean nothing to protect my property and probably the other properties around me, because it wasn't done right. It should have been done up ahead, just like the first case that was brought up here. It shouldn't be an after-the-fact thing when something's to what appears to be 90% complete and you're just working on the inside and you have building construction trailers in there all along. I've seen them all along for 6 or 7 months now. John Prentice is doing it. I know the contractor, you know, and all that. I mean, it's just a totally messed up situation. And I hate to have to say that because I don't want to make enemies with anybody. I want to be friends with George and everybody else in my subdivision. But I'm very upset about how my homeowners association represented me and the interaction between this commission and how homeowners associations work. And maybe the fact that I moved in from another state and from another area that has a little bit of weight about how other people will look at it when they come in here from other places. So that's all I have to say. I hope it's all taken the right way by everybody here. I'm sorry, I don't mean to make enemies with you, George. But I have to say that because I am concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Stewart?
Yes, question. You're on this board. How would you vote? To deny the request? You're making a lot of statements, so what's your answer?
You know, I don't know, because I don't have the professionalism that you do on how zoning's done. I think that's a
What do you
lawyer.
want?
What's your background?
What do you want?
I can't comment. First of all, is your background in law? Can I ask you that? I don't know what your background is. You're asking me as an engineer.
The board is here to receive testimony.
I see.
The members of the board
I'm sorry, I don't know that.
are not here to answer questions.
Okay, I didn't know that. But anyway, no, I can't speak. I'm speaking as an engineer and a concerned homeowner. I don't know what the right decision is at this point. I'm just upset that it ever got to this point procedurally in this county and that this could happen. And what I think you should have done as a board as early as you could, frankly, the homeowners association right away, should, as soon as they saw construction going on, they should have said, look, you got to stop till we consider what this means to our restrictions. They were the first ones at fault. Then secondly, when you all became aware of it 2 or 3 months into it, you should have taken action and said, look, we got to look into this. You got to at least cease constructing right now where you're at so we can look into this. You don't wait till a project's complete and then make a decision on it when somebody's going to take $150,000, who knows what loss on something. It can't be torn down with that major loss, or somebody's going to have to make it right. So they're really, how can you say there's a decision at this point? It's like putting the cart after the horse. You know, it should have been done the horse first and then the cart comes second, but it wasn't. So it's a great way to get something through. And frankly, I like to think that everybody in our subdivision is very ethical and they would never do that. But if I was a schemer, boy, that's the way to do it, boy. Just go ahead and do it, play the system, and then bang, you're going to get it approved. And it's sad because I think the next person comes along, they can go and do something and they'll just come and say, well, guess what? They already made a restriction, an exception once on a permit. So you have to do it for me too. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen from now on in all kinds of ways on our restrictions. And so I'm concerned about my property value, and I'm sure a lot of other people are concerned about our property values too, because our restrictions don't mean anything. I'm sorry, but that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Stewart? No, thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Okay, thank you.
The next person on the list is Matt White. Mr. White, please be sworn in and then state your name and address for the record.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. My name is Matt White. I live at 1119 Old Pine Drive in Tays Valley Meadows North. I came this evening really just to listen and really see how everybody felt about the issue. What happens with Mr. Watts' decision doesn't really concern me. I'm far enough away from the neighborhood, but the concerns of the precedent being set, I guess I understand that now, because my curiosity was more, would I be able to consider a separate residence for my in-laws myself as they're aging as well? If that is an option, I assume that the more of these permits that are granted, the more likely additional ones are as well. And then that kind of had me thinking, well, if everybody adds them, am I going to feel too enclosed around me? Not sure if I would or wouldn't, but I've only got a neighbor on one side of me, so I don't guess I'd really have to worry about that. And my decision to build one, I don't guess I'd really have to have much concern for it either. Again, I don't know Mr. Watson, and decision for his stuff does not impact me at all, but I have realized that, yeah, the precedent being set is tempting. So, thank you.
Does anyone have excuse me, does anyone have any questions for Mr. White?
Question.
Yes, sir.
You made the statement that you're far enough away that it don't bother you. What if you were driving around and saw the house beside of that one for sale? Would it bother you then?
Mr. Watson's home?
Yes.
The height itself does not bother me. The only thing that is really makes me question it is just the additional detached dwellings and the lack of yards. But no, the height itself, it's not an unappealing building. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Mr. White? Thank you. Okay, that runs through the list of everyone who noted that they wanted to speak. I will ask, we're getting, the hour is getting late, so I will ask if there's anyone else who wishes to speak, but I'll ask that the comments please be limited and pertinent to the issues before us. Yes, ma'am. Also ask if we could just mark the sign-in sheet as a record of who marked that they would like to speak. Just 1 second.
Oh, that's fine.
Please be sworn in and then state your name and address.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
What's your name?
Natalie Stanley Burford.
Natalie?
Stanley Burford. Mm-hmm. 702 Plantation Drive, directly across the street. Ready? So my husband and I moved in February of 2020, and the Watsons were the first people to welcome us to the neighborhood. I want to say that. They set the precedence for Tays Valley, Meadows North. Those were the people that welcomed us. The second thing, if anybody has had a problem with this, it should be us. We live across the street, and frankly, we don't. I actually wrote a letter for George in approval of this property because he's going to reside the house. It's going to match. It's going to update the face of the house. It's going to bring it into 2022. Why not? The other thing is the building was under roof in less than a month. So people who say they've worked on it for months and months and months, the structure was at its height in less than a month. So it did not continue for 6 months after George figured out that there was an issue. The damage was already done. What's he going to do? Just stop and say, well, I'm going to wait another 6 months, but it's already at the height it's going to be? That, in my opinion, would be stupid. So he just continued to do what he was going to do, and like he said, he was just going to figure it out. The other thing that I want to point out is this is not about the HOA. This is about the zoning. So if it's a single-family home and somebody wants to put a storage building on, but it's a single-family resident, what's to say that somebody can't rent out a storage building in their backyard? Tiny homes are storage buildings. The other thing is if the Watsons set a precedent about what our neighborhood is going to turn into, by all means, I would love for everybody in our subdivision to build an in-law suite. It increases living space, it increases property value, and it gives everybody a facelift because if you build something new, out with the old, the house has to get improved too. So in closing, just to keep it short and sweet, we look at this house every day. We have zero problem with it.
Does anybody have any questions of Ms. Burford? Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, any additional questions of staff? All right, with that, I will close the public hearing.
Excuse me, I do have some clarification for the zoning ordinance that you may find interesting.
Well, I will not yet close the public hearing.
As far as height restrictions, here there's been a lot of talk this evening about height. I want to make it clear that you have full understanding that the height requirement for a single-family home is 35 feet. The 15 comes in because of the detached structure. I'm not going to make any guesses about these other structures that have been discussed tonight, but if they are detached structures, then the 15-foot height does not apply. As far as if this was an expansion of the existing home, not a detached structure, there would not be a special permit required, and height would be allowed at the 18. So just so you have clarification of what the ordinance does state, that's why we are here. It boils down to because it is detached when it comes to the height and the accessory use.
If, for example, this were connected to the main house with a breezeway, would that be connected, rendering this not detached?
There is an opportunity that if the homeowners would be interested in going that route, and we did have this conversation, that they could submit a drawing of how they would desire to attach the home. If that was the case, we would not be discussing a special permit use. We would not be discussing height.
Any questions of staff? No. Okay. With that, I'll close the public record. We have a pretty extensive packet of documentation in front of us. And I would, I move that we adopt as our factual record the packet presented to us, the comments of staff, as well as the comments of the applicant and all of those who spoke at the public hearing.
I'll second that proposal.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
With 3 ayes, our factual record has been adopted. I believe we must first take up the question of variance. And does anyone have any discussion on the variance? We have 4 criteria for the variance. The first one is that the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, or the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. It seems that we have a sufficient factual record before us to make that decision. Does anyone wish to discuss that first criteria? In this case, it seems factually that there don't appear to be any safety or welfare concerns. The larger concerns seem to be with the addition of the apartment, so it doesn't appear that there are significant concerns. And if we look at the record before us, there really aren't concerns about whether it would affect the public health or safety. The second criteria is the variance arises from special conditions or attributes which pertain to the property for which a variance is sought and which were not created by the person seeking the variance. Does anybody have any discussion regarding the second criteria for a variance? I will say I initially struggled with this criteria, but if I look at the timeline, it appears that the applicant submitted a request to the Homeowners Association Board on June 8 of 2020, and that was approved a few months later in August 18th of 2020. So it seems that most of the action that was taken with respect to construction was likely taken as based upon that approval from the HOA board in their email.
The only problem I've got is the homeowner created the problem. And I don't know to what extent the problem was created by the homeowner, and just how we're going to look at this. It wasn't the county's fault because Melissa didn't know. Homeowners Association, I don't know what went on there. But being a builder in this valley for years and years and years, I do know the people that developed the land. I've built houses in there, and I don't think this is what they want. I don't think this is what they would want. I know if I tried to do that while I was building a house in there, I wouldn't be allowed to do it.
Does everyone feel that they have enough information to determine whether they agree with the statement that the variance arises from special conditions or attributes which pertain to the property for which a variance is sought and which were not created by the person seeking the variance?
I just feel
And you don't have to say now. I just want to know if you feel like you have enough information based on the record that we've discussed.
Yes.
And if there is a worksheet in your packet, where you can mark yes or no as whether you think that has been met. The third criteria is that the variance would eliminate an unnecessary hardship and permit a reasonable use of the land. Any discussion with respect to that third criteria?
The answer, yes.
Yes.
And I think that's, to me, it seems reasonable use of the land since there are at least, we have evidence that there's at least several other homes who have this, whether they're in compliance with HOA regulations or even with county ordinances is another issue because we just don't know. It appears that it's a reasonable use of the land since that's a use of adjoining properties. Finally, the variance will allow the intent of the zoning ordinance to be observed and substantial justice done. Does everyone feel they have enough information to make a determination as to whether that criteria is met?
Yes.
Well, I've sort of worked through my worksheet. I know where I stand. Though I'm in a unique position because there's three of you here, so I don't have to vote because there can't be a tie. So what I said really doesn't matter in this situation. But if you've checked at least one of these boxes as no, the variance should not be approved. So any further discussion with respect to the variance? Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the worksheet as is.
Accept the worksheet or the request for the variance?
Yes. I second.
Motion was made to to grant the variance, and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
With that, with 3 ayes, the variance is granted. I move that I be authorized to enter an order noting the board's approval of the variance application.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
With 3 ayes, I will execute the order on the variance. Okay. So the variance with respect to height has been approved. We now need to consider the accessory apartment, which is a special permit. There's also a worksheet in your packet with respect to special permits. You should, as we work through these, please consider whether you can state true or false with respect to each statement for a special permit. The first consideration, or the first criteria, is the use will not discourage the development or impair the value of the surrounding and adjacent land and use district or districts. This one seems met to me because there's evidence from knowledgeable people within the packet that this will actually increase the value, so it certainly wouldn't decrease it. And I didn't see any evidence otherwise presented tonight.
I would have to say false on that. With my expertise of building houses in the valley, and I've run into these situations before where you get something that is not considered, zoned. It can't pass the variances. I've actually got into situations where people have done that, and I've actually bought the house from them to keep from damaging the values of my houses around them.
Any additional discussion or thoughts?
Pardon me?
Any additional discussion or thoughts from you or for anyone else? With respect to the first criteria? Okay.
I say it's true, and I say just the opposite way. True, and it will not discourage the development or impair the value of the surrounding and adjacent land. I'm going to say true.
Okay. Okay, the second criteria is that the concentration and volume of vehicles in connection with the use will not be more dangerous or hazardous than the usual traffic of the use district. So the question is, will this increase traffic in the subdivision? To me, to me, if they're not, number one, if they're not driving, it wouldn't. But the question then becomes, if they were a teenager or a sibling or someone else moved in there, they may have a car, so there could be additional vehicles on the road, but I'm not sure that is substantial. I don't know, they're not opening a concert venue within the subdivision. But I think there would have to be some sort of limitation as to if this were to be granted or considered, there would have to be some consideration as to restricting any approval with respect to rental and the use of this additional structure. Any further discussion with respect to the second criteria? The third criteria is the proposed use will not produce a negative impact upon the abutting or surrounding properties and zoning uses given the characteristics, size, location, intensity, and nature of the proposed use in any structure.
false. Like I said, I've been in these situations before. And it might not affect everybody wanting to purchase a house beside this one, but it would affect the total market of people looking at this house. There will be people that will not move in there because of this.
Because of what?
Because it's just out of character, it's out of place, the aesthetics, it's too tall, it doesn't match. And people, when you call it curb appeal, and when you drive by something, you only get one chance to make a first impression. I mean, if there was a house sitting there with a bunch of cars being repaired in the driveway, that would make a difference. The concept of this garage sitting in there beside of this house, it overwhelms the house, and the aesthetics is just not there, and plus it's too tall. That's the zoning part of it, but in my opinion, and I've built a couple hundred houses in this valley, I've developed land in this valley, and this would be a detriment to some people purchasing the houses on the side.
Any additional discussion with respect to the third criteria? When I say that, I mean your own personal opinion. I'm not saying you have to agree with Mr. Stewart's or with anyone else.
Yeah, I understand.
But I want to make sure that if anybody else has any discussion they want to.
On my
No, understood. All right. Criteria 4, the location, extent, arrangement, and intensity of the proposed use is to be such that its operation will not be objectionable to adjacent and surrounding uses by reason of noise, smoke, dust, odors, fumes, vibrations, or glare. I haven't heard any testimony that it's objectionable based upon these items that we're supposed to consider. Any discussion with respect to criteria 4?
No.
Okay. Criteria 5, the use, arrangement of, and location of uses and structures must be compatible with surrounding uses and zones or capable of being made compatible through the imposition of conditions. Any discussion with respect to the 5th criteria? Criteria 6, the use and structures is not detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the locality involved. Any discussion with regard to the 6th criteria? Seventh criteria, the use and structures conform to the purpose, intent, and objectives of the zoning ordinance. Any discussion with respect to that 7th criteria? The final criteria, the proposed use is properly located in relation to any adopted master plan, general plan, land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or street plan, particularly in its relation to existing collection and local street systems and pedestrian circulation. Any discussion with that final criteria? Any further discussion or deliberation? So if you look at the worksheet, if you've worked through it, whether you've marked it or not, if you've answered, if the board determines that the answer to any of these questions is false, the special permit may not be approved. So I think there's a few ways we could go about it. We could go about it through each criteria, or you can consider it, and if you have marked false for any of the criteria, you should not vote to approve the special permit. No one's made a motion, of course, but does anyone have a preference as to how we approach that? Basically, do we want to take a vote on each criteria, or do we want to take one over vote?
I don't mind not saying anything on the false votes. I mean, that way you won't have to go through each one of them one at a time.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll ask if anyone would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit as presented with the condition that the structure may never be used as a rental property or commercial property.
One other issue that sort of jumped out at me, and it wasn't fully fleshed out here, is there's a question about building permits being obtained. Should the vote consider whether an additional restriction of compliance with building permits required by the state or county be obtained?
I can amend my motion to add to it that the project comply with all government agency building permits that may apply.
So your motion then is to approve with the restrictions of no renting of the additional structure in compliance with state and with governmental requirements.
No rental or no commercial use.
I think I understand. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, with the motion being made, second, and no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
With 2 votes in favor and 1 opposing, the special permit is approved with the restrictions that Mr. Hodge mentioned on the record. I have an order before me that doesn't include those restrictions, so I'll turn to staff and ask whether they prefer that I write this in or whether these restrictions should be typed in.
It's for option as to how you wish to handle it. However, I will say previously you have written on that particular order with adopted conditions. If you choose to have it retyped, it will not be ready until obviously a different day, and someone will need to come into the office where it would be signed at the next meeting.
Why don't I, without objection, I'll write this in, I'll circulate it, let you take a look at it, and we'll sign it. And so I've written on this, the board voted to approve the application with the following restrictions. The adjacent structure may never be rented. And 2, the applicant shall obtain all permits or approvals required of governmental bodies with jurisdiction over the applicant. And sorry. I move that I be authorized to sign the order that I've just shown to you.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda, citizen concerns. Any citizen concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the staff report.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to thank Melissa for her research and 2 great presentations tonight. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 7th. Currently, there is nothing on the agenda. We will keep you posted.
Thank you very much. The next agenda item is unfinished business. Not aware of any. Is there any unfinished business? Any new business? With that, I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
3 ayes, we are adjourned.
I don't know if I can